Welcome to Sales TV again. It's the first one of June. Welcome to June, getting into the summer holidays. Have we missed summer? Burning question, but we're not here to debate that. Welcome back. We're back at Cranfield Grenville Turner Studios. Great team here behind us keeping this going. Really excited today to talk about AI. You're going to go, well, not another one, but this is really topical. We're very, very lucky to be joined by Steve Burton. And we've got Alex remotely as well. So if we could welcome those guys in. Good morning, Steve. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm very good, thank you. I must say I'm rather impressed with your studio. It must be the best studio on LinkedIn Live.
And I know you stopped short there, quite rightly, but possibly one of the best looking presenters as well.
Maybe when's Philip Schofield joining you? Is he joining us this morning? Or?
So, Steve, can you introduce yourself and tell us who you are?
Yeah, so I run a outsourced sales agency. We've been doing this globally for the past 10 years for a lot of the largest tech companies in the world. So we provide top of the funnel support for outsourced sales agencies, as well as sales training and sales recruitment. And that's how you and I have met Andrew in the past, through various different discussions around sales training and what's working in this day and age. So yeah, that's what we do. Hit me up on LinkedIn if you want to talk more about that later.
Excellent. And how does this conversation come around? Because we've been talking about a couple of things, but then something boiled over, and we've had kind of like also a coincidence. So your friend's experience, and then something happened to me last week. But so how did we get to this conversation? What happened to your friend?
Well, you know, before we get to that, I've been keeping my eye on the implications of using AI on top of the funnel and outbound for a long time, because it affects my business. So as well as that, I've got a group of about 200 fractional sales executives and coaches that we debate this sort of stuff all the time in a group chat. And then recently, well, we're always thinking, you hear about it, you see people saying they can do things, and there's little examples on LinkedIn here and there and snippets that people go viral and people get irate about. But it's never actually happened to me. No one's ever called me. I've never received a pitch from an AI bot or anything like that. And then recently, a friend of mine got a call. So it was on his mobile phone. It was a local presence number in the US. And it was an outbound sales call. And he went with it. He recorded it because he knows it's something that we're talking about. It's topical. And he sent me that call and said, Steve, what do you think of this? What are the implications to you? What are the implications to your group? What are the implications to sales? Which is quite a large question, really. But and I just, I laughed and said, yeah, it's pretty cool. Posted it in the chat. Then everyone just started talking about it. One of those people being Andrew. So that's led us to having this conversation today, because I don't know how many people have experienced this yet or what their thoughts on it are. But there is implications in terms of nuisance calls, privacy, salespeople's jobs, all these things. Is it a better buyer experience for the person it reaches out to, or is it just going to ruin the game? So I'm interested to hear your views. I don't know, do you have access to that call, Andrew? It might be worth us playing it if you can.
We're going to play it straight after the show on LinkedIn. So everybody out there, please watch out. What happened is, that was going to be a nice kind of conversation, and as you say, we've known each other for quite a while, so it'd be lovely to talk about it on Sales TV. Yeah. But then I pinged you on Thursday night, if you remember, and went, I don't know whether, but I've just had one as well, and we talked about. I had an energy company ring my landline. Now I haven't had a landline active for 2 years, because I had a big build project and literally we were doing everything on mobile phones, which is fine. And it basically said, great, I know you're the homeowner. And I asked the question, how do you know I'm that homeowner? You haven't asked that even basic, are you? And then because I'd listened to your friend's call on AI, Steve, it was like, something doesn't feel right here. So I asked it, and then it went, well, I've got some engineers in your area. And then I started to think, well, actually, Steve, let's have a play. Just talk to me about AI. How do you use AI in your outreach? And it kind of had a Max Headroom moment, and the call died. But it was like, back to your point right away, which was, whoa, that is now being used live in the UK. It's not necessary sales outreach, but it's customer service outreach. It's basically trying to get an engineer's appointment. But it was a nuisance call, and I can remember 10 years ago the government working very, very hard to get Ofcom to start stamping out these nuisance calls in the evening and these, outreach calls that were basically unethical and trying to, just swamp people. Is AI going to take us? Is AI already taking us back there?
Well, if we look back, 20 years since I've been in the game, there was always some form of legislation that was meant to stop you reaching out to people, outbounding people. It started off, you're not allowed to call people in their homes, you're not allowed to call people on their landlines, you're not allowed to call people on their cell phones, you're not allowed to call people with irrelevant stuff, but people still did it. And I thought that might be a barrier for mass AI outreach because of all these things, but everyone always finds a way, whether it's an offshore company doing it or people who are just not bothered about risking the fines. I've not heard anybody in the UK get one of these calls yet. Stranger, you're the first person, Andrew. I don't know if they singled you out or something, but especially to a home phone, which then sort of thinks one of these AI bots going to call my granny, is one of them going to call my mum, because what sort of people still, you've got a landline. So go on.
So I had one of these calls a couple of weeks ago. I'm pretty sure I've had more than one, but I remember one. I was just coming home, walking to the front door. The mobile phone rings, so not the landline. Don't have a landline anymore, actually. The mobile phone rings, and I looked at my phone thinking, well, I don't recognise the number, but go on, I'll answer it. So I answered it, and there was someone on the other end of the line, and I thought for a moment, it was a real person. But then after about 3 or 4 seconds, I realised this didn't sound quite right. So I then asked a question, and it was when I asked a question that it was clear with a momentary pause that it wasn't human. It didn't feel natural. And at the moment that I didn't feel it was natural, I put the phone down, because I thought, why the hell am I going to have a conversation with a bot that I didn't ask to have? Now, there is that, right? There is the feeling that it gives you as a human. But then I was chatting to a friend last week who's got a Samsung phone, and he uses Bixby, the virtual assistant. And he's set up Bixby to basically answer calls that he receives that he doesn't recognize. So if it's a number that he doesn't recognize, the name doesn't pop up on his phone, he just hits send to Bixby. And Bixby can answer the call, have a conversation with that person on behalf of my friend. And then he was getting a transcript real time. So then he can choose whether or not he wants to interject or follow up with that person. So we've kind of got, for me, there's two things. We've kind of got this feeling it gives you, this uncomfortable feeling that you're talking to a robot. So how is AI going to work? And then how long is it going to be before we've got AIs talking to AIs?
Yeah. No. For sure. I mean, that's what came into my head after I listened to the call. I mean, if we look at it at top of the funnel, that's very low level. But is there an argument to say, like, a procurement AI could be talking to a vendor AI, and they could be negotiating terms and conditions of an acquisition, right? And there's no bias, there's no commission breath, there's no lies, there's no pressure. It's just gone to market, found the best solution based on the available information, and then negotiated the best prices and terms based on what it's been programmed to do and what it's allowed to, and what the procurement's allowed to, the vendor's allowed to give away. Andrew, you teach a lot of students at Cranfield University at a high level. How do you think that would affect the buyer's journey? Like, what do you think that's what people would want? Do you think the human taken out of the loop is something that could be done?
I think that's a fascinating question, Steve, and I'm kind of linking it back to Alex's point there around, the human interaction and trust. So a lot of the research that we do in sales, and all of the salespeople across all the sales academics, trust is 52% of the reason why people engage, and trust is 52% of the reason why people buy and make those decisions. And I fear that actually we will misplace that understanding of trust and how the humanity is required in order for people to do business with each other. if I look at some of the conversations that Adam and I are having for separate kind of the digital element of sales TV, I'll do business with you, Steve, because I like you. I don't necessarily know your company. And if you went to another company, I'd still do business with you because I like you. And if you then put a bot in front of that, it's not you that I'm dealing with, and the bot will, I'll never have that affinity with a bot. So I think in terms of parts of the funnel, absolutely there is a place for efficiencies to be brought in. I think in parts of the funnel there is potentially for very low touch, very low value products for people to be almost completely replaced, but you're still going to have a human fallback. You're still going to need people who are kind of touching these bots, who are making sure that the conversations are going okay, who are then actually stepping in when they fear things. So I think there's some element, Steve, in where it will be really taking over. But I think the vast majority, particularly as you go more into the the clients that you serve, who are talking large ticket transactions to a degree, I think that the humanity is going to be even more critical. And to expand on that answer, you look at Matt Dixon and Jolt and the books that he's written, the challenge of customer. Is a bot going to be able to understand 9 people in the buying process and actually understand all of their characteristics, all of their behaviors, and actually create relationships with them all and understand how to do things? The argument would be that there are software that allows you to do that more efficiently, but can it take over? So I think there are really useful areas for efficiency. Can I see it replacing? No. That's the general researchers, the general academics' view of where AI and technology is coming. And then I would just add one more thing, which is technology. You and I prepped for this yesterday, Steve. Technology's not answered the sales problem so far. So why do we think that this surge of new technology, sexily called AI, is going to change, i.e. drive more pipeline, drive more qualified leads, drive shorter sales cycles, therefore drive more revenue? I don't think it will on its own. And again, that's the general consensus. And then the other challenge is any of this going to be additive to and empower salespeople as opposed to entrap them? Because their sales role is the most stressed. It's the most likely for burnout. 66% of people report stress levels and burnout levels. And that's because we've layered technology on technology on technology and put them in a lovely digital prison box and said, we'll measure everything that you do, but we won't necessarily measure the quality. So hopefully that gives you, I don't fear the salesman is dead. In fact, actually, a colleague that we know said the other day, Steve, actually, is it the death of sales technology? Have we gone too far and all of a sudden the light bulb goes on? Very long-winded answer to a very simple question. Sorry, Steve.
Oh, no, I completely agree with you. I mean, if we just take it back to the top of the funnel, new business outreach, in the last 10 years, there's been a lot of tools brought to market it's meant to optimize results. Email automation, power dialers, multi-line dialers, cadence builders, all this sort of stuff. And in my previous life, when I was training companies, it didn't matter whether I was in Australia or America or South America. When I was brought in to do training, after doing an initial needs analysis, it was never what they thought was needed. It always tracked back to the basic fundamentals, not being high level and having to work on that. And if you just pile on technology on top of bad practices, you're actually just amplifying bad practices. So it's just a poor experience for the buyer. So technology used in the correct way is great, but it's not the answer to the majority of the problems. I mean, if we take the human out of the loop and put a bot in, and that bot or that AI can deliver a message, again, with no bias, and have all the information that the buyer needs to make a decision perfectly at his fingertips, that may change. But I do have worries that, again, the AI tools are just going to be used to amplify bad practices again, and then that just annoys buyers and stops them reacting to new business outreach and then just taking the time to come inbound at a later stage. So that's where I am at the moment in terms of implications. Also, I do have some worries about data privacy. I mean, we speak to a lot of senior IT security leaders, CISOs, CTOs. I mean, I don't know how they're going to feel about speaking to an AI, even though they're very technically proficient. Like, how are they going to feel about giving information away about their situations, painting challenges to a AI that then needs to process that information and store it somewhere. So I think there's some implications in that space as well. I don't think it's ready to take over yet, but I mean, I do see some positives in the buyer journey. Like I've mentioned, if a buyer can deal with a piece of technology that has no bias, it doesn't have an agenda, they're not under pressure, you don't have to discount unnecessarily, and they have all the information. Because if we look at what is a salesperson this day and age? Like, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, there used to be subject matter experts that you were relying on a salesperson to guide you and also potentially help you implement a product to be successful. Mm-hmm. But now we have pre-sales, post-sales, customer success, sales engineers. So what's the salesperson's job? Like, if you look at your days at Dell AEMC, Andrew, like, are the people in the field still doing the same job as they were 10, 15 years ago? Like, what is the need for that person at the moment? Again, if you look at human interaction, are they just great relationship builders? Like, what is the role of a salesperson if we take them out of the equation and put a bot in? What are we losing?
Mm.
I think that goes back to a lot of work that Neil Rackham did. So everyone may well know Neil Rackham in terms of the viewpoint that he actually did spin selling. And at the particular time, I mean, I think he did something like 2,000-3,000 sit-ins on sales calls, which was phenomenal considering we don't have technology at that point. He literally had to have his team get on planes and go and sit in customers. And his prediction was that obviously the 2000, the internet of everything would change the world and the way that we would do things. And if you think about a distribution of sales deal sizes and complexity, very, very simple at one end, and then there was the midterm, which was the underappreciated need, and then super highly complex at the other end. And what his suggestion is that actually that middle bit where there was a huge amount of people, where people like you and I, Steve, would go in and talk to customers and find that underappreciated need, what was happening there is that the internet would drive that and it would basically turn a frown. So there would be a lot of work that was required technologically in this low touch, low value, mass market kind of outdoor, and a lot of highly complex salespeople. And stick with it, there is an answer here. What the internet didn't do is allow people to self-diagnose. So all this bit in the middle ended up in no result, no deal, because actually people went onto websites and tried to diagnose. They went on and they couldn't find the answers, but they didn't trust salespeople. So now there's this bit where salespeople not need to be, like, as you say, walking brochures. What they need to be is, okay, let's really get to the root cause of your problem. What are you trying to do? How do you make your business go faster? How do you reduce the risk on your brand? And these are some of the ways that we can do it. And you're not going to get that information by just looking at a website or just comparing all of these things, because there's so many different moving parts to it. So if we then look at the risk, God, sorry, Mike.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that I think the risk with just looking at this through the efficiency lens and making sure that the buyer has the information that they need as quickly as possible, that sort of leans into AI almost. Mm-hmm. And actually, I think the problem I think the problem, and actually, Steve, when I think about your business, the sales outsourcing service you provide, I think there is a bright future for it, because one of the problems that I see is that organizations, marketing teams, sales people are relying on AI to create content mm-hmm. that is insight-led content. It's based on their value proposition. It's perhaps talking about problems that customers may or may not have, but they're adding to this mountain of insight that's just being sent into territories, into buyers mm-hmm. who are ignoring the content. And the more salespeople and marketing teams rely on AI to create this content, the more likely it is to be ignored. Mm-hmm. And so, when you think about human beings and the importance of, and to Andy's point about trust, and people buying from people. When you think about human beings and the importance of engaging with, with another human, and based on shared values and beliefs, you increase the chances of that connection happening. And so I think that if organizations can move away from this idea of searching and qualifying the 5% of people that might be in market for their solution today, and actually think about their audience, their territory, as real people, and engage with them on those shared values and beliefs, then that's the difference. That's the competitive advantage for tomorrow, not the fact that my technology does this and my solution does that.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you say. I mean, the issue I see with my clients, a lot of my clients, is they're getting assessed on a quarterly basis, and they're under so much pressure, they do not have the time to invest in building up that community in their territory and engaging with them at the right time with the right messaging and providing a point of view for long-term success. They really don't. CROs are getting fired every 12 to 18 months. VP sales not far behind, so they're under massive pressure, and that's why people are looking to optimize and put outreach on steroids and just turn it up and be faster, because they might not have a job in 3 to 6 months, and that's really the issue with the market.
But at what point do we say this isn't working? We've been through 3 VPs.
Everyone's laughing. Yeah, it's like the lunatics have taken over the asylum, isn't it? It's like D-Day tomorrow, which is obviously not belittling D-Day, but if you look at A Bridge Too Far, that classic Sean Connery, as the lunatics come out of the woods, and he goes, "Do you get the impression that people know what I don't?" And that's the point I think we were all kind of covering, isn't it? Is that, to Steve's point, sales, the answer is, well, people aren't in role long enough, therefore we've got to find something that defines success whilst they're in that time period. Or do we actually, Alex, to your point, go, hang on, the definition of insanity is trying to do the things that we've always been doing but faster. Maybe we should look at more sustainable ways of figuring out how we have a sustainable sales ecosystem.
Well, sorry, go on. I sit on client onboarding calls all the time, and I have that conversation with them. Let's plan this out in the long term, and they're like, well, what are you going to do for me this quarter? And that's it. Yeah. That's the pressure people are under. But when has it ever been any different? When have salespeople never been under massive pressure to hit numbers in a set period of time? Everyone wants to give long-term value, but everyone's looking at a quarterly number. So
the difference, I think, years ago, as a good salesperson, you could manage expectations up. The times that I would be managing my forecast, right? The things that would go in my forecast would be the things that I felt really were going to close, not keep my manager off my back. I think the biggest difference is salespeople no longer have that luxury anymore. They're getting made redundant left, right, and centre. Mm-hmm. So we've created this sort of world of dishonesty internally, because forecasts, don't mean anything, don't mean as much as they once did. I really feel for you in your role, because you must constantly be having to battle that between, your client and what their expectation is that quarter versus what could be delivered in time if you were more strategic, or if they were more strategic about the approach.
But is that?
Yeah, no, but
go on, Steve. Sorry, cutting across you.
No, but you've got to understand all the different motivations on the team. I mean, and that's sort of sometimes the problem with outbound alignment. Like the account execs or the sales directors' agendas sometimes a little bit different to the sales managers or the VP sales, and that's probably a little bit different to the CRO or the boards, right? So there's just a misalignment, because you've got the salesperson in the field trying to save the job. You've got maybe the sales director trying to buy a little bit of time by putting in some long-term pipeline that might be a little bit fudged while they interview for the jobs, and it goes on and on. I mean, AI is probably not going to help us at this stage. Maybe from a forecasting perspective, it might bring some truths in there. But I just want to pivot a little bit, Alex. My understanding is you work quite heavily in social media. Is that correct? Is that where you live, right?
Allegedly, Steve. It's a
allegedly
around, yeah.
Well, I see he's got a top knot there, so I didn't think he was working in corporate sales, but yeah, so social media,
Almost.
love
Yeah.
it, yeah. So we've talked about AI outbounding on a phone, which is one thing. Have you had any experience or instance recently where you feel as if you're talking to a bot on LinkedIn on instant messaging? Because I've had that quite often, and it's got to the point where people are actually saying to me at the start of like a message, "Hi, Steve, I'm a real person," and then start chatting. So why does that become a thing? People are having to say they're a real person to start and engage in a conversation.
And are they telling the truth?
Yeah, exactly. Or is it just
Like...
not doing
it? Yeah, I think this for me this presents the opportunity for us as real people, non-AI, to stand out from the crowd as everyone starts to use AI on LinkedIn. There's tools out there like Merlin, for example, which is a commenting tool. So it sits on LinkedIn as a like a Chrome extension, and you go to a post, you click the comment, and then it gives you the option to create a positive, curious, thoughtful, professional reply to that comment. And I use Merlin. I use Merlin to get my own creative juices going, not to do the job for me. And I think those people that rely on AI to do the job for them, it only adds to the problem that we were talking about earlier, that downward spiral to the bottom of the funnel that actually ends up closing at the bottom. Conversion rates decline versus those salespeople that are leveraging AI to be better salespeople, to increase their knowledge, to get their creative juices going, and help them, using AI to help them stand out and be different.
I mean, at what point will it become too much, though? At what point will you have 10,000 brands just using AI tools just to comment on everything on LinkedIn? You don't know if it's real, or you don't know if you're engaging with a real person. You don't know if the person you're speaking to on a chat wants to speak to you or not, or whether it's a chat bot just trying to book you into a meeting. So I don't know if LinkedIn's getting better or worse. It seems to evolve through time. It gets noisier for sure. I don't know what the implications are to the buyers there, but what do you think it's creating efficiencies in that space, Alex, or do you think it's making things worse?
Yeah, I think there's the two sides of the coin. It's how you choose to use AI, but to your point about sort of everyone using it and not being able to cut through the noise, that for me is my opportunity. I provide social selling and influence training and coaching, and a big part of what we do is help an individual develop their personal brand. So it's not just about their content or the commenting that they're doing. It's about the big picture. It's about what do they want to be known for. What's the conclusion that a buyer comes to when they're reading all of their digital assets, not just their LinkedIn profile, and what content are they creating to really make themselves stand out and look different. And that's where video can come in. And I know AI is getting better in terms of video creation, but little things like a week ago I posted about me playing golf in the Algarve, and I related my experience on the golf course to business and sales. And so that's impossible for AI to replicate.
What was that? Constantly in the rough.
Sunday was constantly in the water.
Constantly in the rough, and life's a bunker. Listen, guys, we've got to wrap up here, and I know, Steve, you've got a packed day, so I want to thank you for coming on and doing this episode. I think we've just scratched the surface here, so I think it would be great to go out, Steve, to the network and the WhatsApp group that you run, and let's ask them to get engaged in this, and let's ask them to come out and let's see what their customers and networks think about this, and maybe we could do jointly a Cranfield Sales TV really big, deep investigation into the impact of AI on sales from the people who are very closest and most important. So, Steve, thank you so much. Really want to have you back because this is just brilliant conversation. Alex,
yeah, pleasure.
Absolutely brilliant to have you here as well. Well, physically, not so much these days, clearly, because you're out in the Algarve playing golf. So what a great life that is. What I do want to say to everybody out there is this is a really interesting topic. Actually, Cranfield itself here is doing a whole series of things around AI. So what we'll do with Toby and the team and Javier is see how we can bring all this together, work with Stephen and the entire network. But what I want to do is thank you all for a great session, and we look forward to seeing you again next week and also this afternoon if you want to join into the midday show. See you soon. Bye-bye.
You guys.
Cheers.
Nice to meet you, Steve.
Nice one.